Barcelona advances to the quarterfinals of the Champions League in a potential facing of Dortmund or Lille, as we had a sensational performance last night, especially from Pedri, Lamine Yamal, Frenkie de Jong, as well as Rafinha. Without wasting any time, please do subscribe to the channel. It's going to help us a lot. But let's start with the video. There's a lot to unpack here. When Benfica looked to build up from the back, they were extremely clever in the way they would do it, because they know that Barcelona commit a lot Lamine Yamal and Rafinha forward. So what they did in order to draw Barcelona across, this number 8 went all the way to the sideline, ultimately drawing Frenkie de Jong as well as Pedri into this region, which ultimately forced Olmo and Lamine to also stay narrow. And sometimes when this number 9 would drop, he was often followed by Inigo Martinez, which means that Araujo and Koundé had to come all the way back, which means that the switch could cause Barcelona a lot of trouble. Unfortunately, Benfica couldn't take control or advantage of this, and this ultimately forced Lamine Yamal way back early in the earlier stages of the game in order to defend. It is absolutely wild to me how high Rafinha and Balde defends, especially Balde, and look how Olmo and Lamine had to come across in order to cover the space, because we see that Pedri had to cover the deeper pivot while Frenkie de Jong had to run all the way across to the line. And this is the way that teams nowadays are going to draw Barcelona across, because you can see Inigo was a little bit scared to commit these fouls up high because Pavlidis would drop deep, and Inigo was already on a yellow card, so he would have missed the next game. So here you see that Lamine Yamal now had to run all across the pitch, and Koundé was actually in a 2-on-1 situation because he and Ronald Araujo had to go all the way in order to cover the space that was left by Inigo. And you can see, look how Koundé and Yamal they were basically confused on who they had to mark. So this could be a problem for Barcelona in the future. It seems like Benfica wanted to take advantage of the fact that Lamine Yamal do very little in defense. Not necessarily that he doesn't want to, but I mean that he has so much responsibility going forward. And therefore Benfica tried to push Barcelona to one side, and Barcelona defended extremely narrow. Even from goal kicks, they would do this where this winger would overlap, and ultimately this guy would go forward, the fullback, drawing Koundé out, and then the ball would be played in behind. There was only one thing that saved Barcelona in this situation right here, which is the fact that we defended extremely high with the high line, of course, and these runs that were made through here was often not timed by Benfica. So if they could have got this in behind well and timed their runs, they could have caused some serious damage to Barcelona. But big ups to the high line. We see here, even from free kicks and long balls, Barcelona was drawn to one side by Benfica, and that was practically their game plan for this whole entire match, where they would try to get Barcelona to one side, and they committed a lot of players and being brave, because they didn't worry really about being opened up. They just wanted Barcelona to get to one side, because then this midfielder would then invert as well, and then the switch could happen to the fullback who would go forward in the situation right over here. And this caused a lot of trouble, because when Koundé had to cover the player, the other one who's making the run through the half space had to be covered by Lamine Yamal. And this could have been catastrophic if Flick didn't change something very important. Instead of Lamine Yamal, he had Ronald Araujo cover that player, and that is the last time we saw this tactic from Benfica. Before we continue further with the video, I would like to express my gratitude towards you guys, as we are closing in on 10,000 subscribers with over 1 million views. Thank you so much for watching the channels, all the love, support, and the disagreements as well. Please continue subscribing and help us get to 10,000. Thank you so much, guys. Benfica defended in what looked like a 4-2-4 situation, which was, in my opinion, foolish for a bunch of different reasons, because number one, there would be 3 against 2 in the build-up phase, and seeing that these 2 wider players would cover Barcelona's fullbacks, that meant that their pivot would have to come onto our pivot, which means that Rafinha, Olmo, or even Lewandowski would have a lot of space if these press that they would have was not good enough, meaning that only one pass could literally just carve them in half. And that was a huge problem that Bruno Lage didn't really take a look at throughout the game. Their front 2 was outnumbered at all times, because look how wide Inigo's receiving the ball, and look at the 4, because they had to cover the pivot and also Barcelona's fullbacks. That was so easy for Dani Olmo just to receive the ball in between the lines because they were not correlated and the press was not together. They weren't pressing as a team most of the times. And this is how Barcelona could drive up the pitch. And I'm sure you saw this many times, the way that Pedri, Olmo, Rafinha and also Balde was driving up the pitch because of the way they pressed. The line-breaking passes from Barcelona were a real problem for Benfica, and they started getting real clever as they would try to press Barcelona from an angle in order to get them to one side, and they would kind of form this four-man block over here where these guys would simply just stay and try to cover these line-breaking passes. That is why Pedri was also forced to come into this deep region where he would get on the ball, and this actually separated him from Frenkie de Jong as well as Dani Olmo. So really good tactics there from Bruno Lage. Here we see that interesting block I was just talking about, which ultimately cut out the passing lanes for them, where the front two would join them. And look at how the left winger is tucking in. The first way Barcelona took care of this block that you see right here is we saw that Frenkie de Jong came as a centre back, basically allowing Inigo to go a little bit wider, and therefore Balde would actually pin this player right here. Inigo got time and space on the ball because the number 9 couldn't really press because they could easily just round him. Because this player was marking Frenkie or Ronald Araujo, therefore now you would see this problem right here where they could easily go just straight through them. The other way Barcelona would do it was to have Robert Lewandowski come into the space here and disrupt the structure, and then Pedri would run ahead of Lewandowski, and then that is how they would actually find the space to just carve through that block and still find the spaces. So really good adjustment, and I think that is Flick's biggest attribute as a coach, his ability to adjust to the tactics of the opposition. Here we see that Frenkie de Jong dropped to Inigo's place and he went a little bit wider, and now you see Pedri and Balde are also pinning these two guys, which ultimately allowed that pass now straight to Rafinha. You can see Frenkie dropped because Bruno Lage didn't want to get rid of this 4-2-4 situation that they were defending with, and it obviously allowed Barcelona a lot of slack. You can see Pedri here as well. Look at the space in the half spaces that Rafinha, Balde and everybody just could take advantage of, which is crazy. No wondering you saw a lot of dribbling from Frenkie de Jong. You see a lot of dribbling from Dani Olmo. You saw a lot of dribbling from Alejandro Balde, and I'm really impressed by Balde. And we should really start putting Balde in that situation of being called one of the best centre backs, right? Because bro is just so great at dribbling, and he's just excellent the way that he drives forward. So that is why Barcelona could drive so much. And we have unfortunately reached the end of our video. I hope you guys understood everything very well. It was a great victory for Barcelona as we advanced, maybe playing Dortmund or Lille in the semi-finals of the quarterfinals of the Champions League, excuse me. And like I said earlier in the video, please guys do subscribe to the channel. We are on the way to 10,000 subscribers, over 1 million views, and it's all because of you guys. Thank you so much for watching this channel. I will see you guys against Atletico Madrid.